everyone got it? So this is Paul. We're starting a new series called Things Jesus Never Said.
Okay. Yeah, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God. So, things Jesus never said. It's supposed to be a series about things that we think Jesus said, but he didn't say. Okay? So, and it's not these are like jokes, but they're funny. Okay? There'll be a few of them there. But this is about things that you'll hear like a lot, like our moms will say them, حاجات حلوة كده يعني ربنا مش هيجربك يا حبيبي حاجات غير اللي انت تقدر عليها, stuff like that. You won't be tried more than you can handle, stuff like that. We're like, what? That's not in the Bible? And so this morning, to give you an idea, I was telling my wife we're gonna prepare for this topic, and this is the one I picked. So the one I picked is okay. This is the one I picked out of because there's a few, and this is the one we'll start with. I will never give you more than you can handle. So I told my wife that's the one I'm picking. She's like, no, but you wrote it wrong. It's things Jesus said. I'm like, no, it's things Jesus didn't say. She said, but Jesus said that. I'm like, no, Jesus didn't say that. And she's like, what? And it like destroy our life for a little bit, okay? But we're gonna talk about it. But before we go there, I hate YOLO. بس تكون عارفين, okay? اللي يقول YOLO قدامي هخبط بعربية. Okay? That's just to say. So these are funny, but whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, so here we go. I will never give you more than you can handle. So the first thing I thought to myself, but wait, there's a verse that I remember very well that says something about I won't like try you, I won't tempt you, So like you go do research, and it's this one, the 1 Corinthians. A lot of people know it. Even my wife, she's like, yeah, but in Corinthians there's a verse that says that. And I'm like, I guess not. So it says, no temptation has overtaken you except such as is common to man, but God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will also make the way of escape that you may be able to bear it. What's the difference between this and trial? What's he talking about here? What's the difference between trial and temptation? So we're saying God will never try you. No, he didn't say that. He didn't say I'll never try you more than you can handle. But he said I'll never allow you to be tempted. What's the difference?
Temptation is not from God.
Huh?
God allows it, but he doesn't give it. Yani,
Which one?
temptation.
Very good. Why?
Devil tries to tempt us. God allows it, but does not create it. Yani, God does not give it.
Very good.
He just allows it to happen.
What's the proof? Tell me where in the Bible it says that. 100 points to the person who gets it. Basically, what Joseph just said, but somewhere written. The exact words. Let no man, when he is tempted, say that he is tempted by God, for God cannot be himself tempted, nor tempt any man. Where is that? Who said that? مين اللي قالها? We just talked about this like 1 month ago. James. Right, very good. So it's the first chapter of the Epistle of St. James. يعقوب صحصحي معايا. هو جيمس ويعقوب مش عارف جابوها ازاي يعقوب من جيمس بس هي كده. Okay, فالتركيز يعني. Okay? So that's the difference between temptation and trial. You said temptation is not from God. What is a trial? Is a trial sin? No, what is a trial?
Trial is...
The hint is in Arabic, tagarub. What's the difference? Or whatever. What's different? Death in the families. Trial or temptation?
Trial.
Very good. Sickness. Trial or temptation?
Trial.
David looking over his balakona and seeing a woman bathing and lusting. Trial or temptation?
Temptation.
Very good. So you guys understand. Doesn't matter to define it, we understand. Okay? So that's the difference. Okay, so here we go. The difference between them is the source and the purpose. The source of trial is God. Source of temptation is the devil. The purpose of temptation is to break you, and the purpose of a trial is to build you up. Okay? So that's the difference between these two things. So we never say, yes, God will never allow you to be tempted, sure. But tried beyond what you can handle, our whole church is based on people who were tried more than they can handle. Okay? It's not very clear. The first picture is Moses. How much more do you want to be tried than to go 40 years, okay, in a wilderness, not knowing where God is after you were forbidden almost from serving Him in your own way? St. Paul, I really like this picture of shipwreck. How much more broken do you need to be? How much more trial do you need beyond what you can handle than to be shipwrecked? Even he himself says, like, many a nights in the deep. Imagine, kid, close your eyes, being in the ocean, in darkness, not knowing what's around you. This is beyond what any person can handle. But there's a very big difference here. And that difference, I need to take a time out for because of one reason. There's a bit of a misrepresentation, okay? It's kind of it's a series based on Abuna Anthony. When he says, like, oh, God never says this, it kind of implies that God's saying, no, you can be tried more than you can handle, and I'm going to be standing there and just watching you. No, that's not what we mean. He's not saying, yes, everyone will be tried, okay, more than they can handle, but it's not just them who is living, right? We don't live alone. And that's the whole trick in the matter. That's the whole thing. It's not that God leaves you by yourself. But even Jesus was bleeding. He was sweating blood. How much more did He need to be tried? You understand? So that's beyond what any human could bear. But it's not just us alone. And that's the problem, Ba. This is why sometimes we ask the question of how come this happened to this person? They couldn't handle it. And a lot of times we say that. People in areas of the world where their children are being chemically attacked and gassed. I don't know if you guys saw the pictures on social media or whatever over the last few weeks. It's something that makes me have to skip right away because I can't handle looking at it. I have children. I can't see a child with sores all over their face because they've just been attacked with a gas bomb. The first thing that comes to my head is like, well, why, God, would you allow them to be tried like that? That's more than anyone could handle, right? And this is the big point of today. This is the big point to understand that no, God's not leaving us. And yes, He will allow, He will not do, because this is evil that's causing this in the world, but it is by His will that He allows these things. He's not just standing and watching, okay? There's a huge asterisk, a big star there, okay? And what's that star? So first, let's address why these things happen, okay? Two main reasons why they happen. The first one is an alarm clock. I like the kumbela because that's how I feel every morning when my alarm goes off, okay? So the first is an alarm clock. The second one is spiritual muscle. The alarm clock is not very difficult. You guys all know. Someone who is far from God, someone who is even close to God but has a weakness, someone who has a repetitive sin, someone who just doesn't want to hear, God drops like an alarm kumbela on their head, okay, that makes them just stop in their tracks, look around them and think, okay, there's something bigger than me. There's something more important. That could be sickness, that could be illness, that could be loss of life, that could be anything, right? It could be financial loss, it could be ruin, it could be a natural disaster. There's a lot of things that happen that in our everyday of, I wake up at 7 o'clock, I wash my face, I brush my teeth, I put on my clothes, I get out, I pass by Tim Hortons, I'm actually telling you my day. I pass by Tim Hortons, I ask for a large coffee if I'm really tired, sometimes it's medium if I'm so tired, but now, these days, it's been large coffee. Get my large coffee, I drink my large coffee, I'm a very sad life that by the time I get to work, and my whole day passes by and God is very non-existent in my life, okay? And I'm so tired after work, I get home, I take a shower, I say goodnight to my kids, kiss, and then I watch television and then the day's over. And I live my whole life like that, and then one day God drops something on my head that makes me unable to go to work, something that makes me unable to enjoy my morning coffee, something that makes me unable to go to sleep or even sleep or get a few hours of sleep, and then it makes me think to myself, okay, maybe there should have been something else in my life that was needed, right? And that's the alarm clock, but every person has a different one. Some people, it's the smallest thing like anything, okay? Just one day of trouble at work. Another person, it's a car accident. Another person, it's illness or disease. It could be huge, it could be small, but God, it's like God's way of just getting our attention. The second one is the one, so I put an example of Jonah. Jonah was a prophet. He was a holy person. He was a man of God. But he needed his alarm clock. He needed to know what God's heart was like. To Jonah, it was like, oh, you say whoever you want to save, want to marry, and God's trying to show him, I'm going to die for these people, but I created these people. These are my creation. You need to love them the way I love them. You need to be hurt and brokenhearted the way I'm brokenhearted when I lose them. And this was the alarm clock in Jonah's life. For him to be a man of God truly and to have the heart of God, he needed an alarm. The second thing is the spiritual muscle. So I'm going to go back, sorry for a second. This is physiology, okay? Some of you are going to throw something at me. But basically, what happens when we work out is that these little fibers, so each muscle is made of a bundle of little muscle fibers, okay? The reason you're in so much pain when you work out, especially for the first time, is because there are minor tears in each one of these muscles, okay? So you're in pain because you've caused partial injury to the muscle that you've worked out. So what happens is the muscle, God's creation, every time it tears a little bit, it heals. But when it heals what? A little bit stronger to be able to handle that stress the next time. So then the next time you do 20 pounds, you rip a little bit more on muscle or injure the muscle, and it heals to be able to be strong enough to do 20 pounds. You come back in a month, you start doing 25 pounds. Your muscle starts to tear again, and when it heals so that you can do 25. Eventually that's called growth. It heals in a way where it grows. And then what? You find yourself being able to carry anything. You're much stronger. Spirituality works the same exact way. Okay? God, this is how بوظت اللمبة. شفت أنا عملت كده؟ How does this thing work?
Okay, so it's made out of paper.
Don't move. God works in a very similar way as our muscles do, as physiology works. He created it. It's the same thing. We have spiritual muscle. And this is where we go back to the, don't worry, don't forget, to the why does God allow these things to happen? People can't handle them. No, people would be able to handle them. People would be able to handle them, but there's a big if, there's a big but. But before we get to it, let's continue. Spiritual muscle. So what happens? You're young. You're 8 years old. Mom and dad tell you, you're very sad, you lost your toy, okay? And you're very sad, and mom and dad come to you and say, حبيبي لو صليت جامد قوي. Okay, and all of you, I'm sure, have little stories about the oneness and about كل واحد عنده القديس بتاع الحرامية or whatever it is, okay? Okay? Mom and dad say, حبيبي, go to your room and pray really hard. And if you pray really hard with a lot of faith, you're going to find your toy. Okay? Stupid example, but everyone has one of those. Yeah, it doesn't have to be exact. And what happens is you come out of your room, you prayed so hard, and a lot of times God is very, very great. He allows you to find it in the craziest place. Something crazy happens. And I have my own story like that of my wallet in the middle of like one of the biggest cities in the world. Till today, I still don't understand it. It like strengthens my faith, even though it happened to me when I was like 10. My mom, we're in a hotel room in the middle of Paris. We were visiting family members. My wallet is gone. We don't know where. Pray hard, pray hard, pray hard. I'm like a child. I'm praying hard. And my mom's like, Ashan salawatak. And she didn't know. She has no way of knowing. She's like, Salli, bas salli. And pray hard, pray hard, pray hard. We got a phone call from some random person saying we have your wallet. Still till today, I don't know how they called us. They called the hotel room. My wallet has nothing in it. Okay? Some person who knew where we were told the friend that we were meeting, who told the family member, it made its way until I found my wallet. It had nothing in it. I was like 10. Okay? But my parents were so overjoyed. I was so overjoyed. Why? Because God listened. And you know what? 10 years later, there's many steps along the road, but 10 years later, when my parents tell me, close your eyes and pray for God's will for school, I'm thinking back and I'm like, you know what? This works. I know that God's there. I know that God's listening. And you know what? I come out of the exam of the ministère, I don't know what, the one that we all hate so much, and God is glorious again. And then the spiritual muscle grows, and the spiritual muscle grows. So what happens is, God is very amazing. When you're young, you have small little tribulations, but if you take them with faith, and if you include God in them, He grows your muscles so that when you grow up, it's inevitable that you will get monstrous tribulations. And it's just life. So everyone, as they grow older, because it's life, will experience more death in their family. Your whole families, but it's inevitable. No one lives forever. More of you will experience death in your families. More of you will experience sickness to your families or to yourselves. More of you will start to become responsible, start to get fired, lose jobs, feel financial burden, have heartache with your children. Your children, God forbid, get sick, and you start to think about it. It's inevitable. It's not something you can escape life. No one can escape it. The Christian, the Muslim, the Jew, the atheist, all together under heaven will always experience it. Because the one place where we don't is in heaven itself. So while we're on this planet, while we're on this earth, there's no way to escape it. So what happens is God says there's no way to escape it, but if you follow my plan to get you there, you will be strong enough to handle it. Like the person who goes to the gym. No one goes to the gym for the first time and lifts 150 pounds. You lift 20, 25, 30, whatever it be until you get there. Same thing. God doesn't just drop the world with no opportunity on your shoulders without Him building you up. Okay? So spiritual muscle. So those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion. Why Mount Zion? A mountain. Have you guys ever seen a mountain? You can kick it. You can try to blow it up. You could. This church, by the way, just so that you know, this church, especially the main church downstairs, I was here when they were starting to think of this place as land. Okay? And they were starting to talk about this church to be built as a church, but it was a mountain. And if you drove by Pierrefonds here ever before the church was built, it was rocks. It was a mountain, okay? And the people would talk to the contractor and they'd be like, you're insane. You're going to need dynamite, and dynamite's very expensive because you have to make an explosion, but this is a city. People live here. So it has to be a controlled explosion. There has to be permits. It's extremely expensive. So they're like, you might as well go somewhere far and buy land. It's going to cost you a lot. And the contractor and Abu Narsenius at the time, Abu Narsenius had this thing which is like, don't worry, Rabbana Makid, Marigid Ismagud, Abu Ghani, all the lines that you guys know very well. And it was one of those things that are like, we won't need it, don't worry. And they're like, it's rock, we've already surveyed it, it won't work. And he's like, just try. And lo and behold, there's a church in the middle of the mountain today, and no one knows this, okay, or a few people know this, but it's to God's glory, right? So, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but yes, mountain, because mountain cannot be shaken, you understand? Likewise, the spiritual mountain cannot be shaken, alright? So here we go. Now, what happens when we try to go throughout our life without taking faith with us, without taking Christ with us? What happens is instead of the mountain, instead of being like Mount Zion, those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, when we start to trust in ourselves, we start to become a house of cards. Anybody ever see a house of cards? Okay, there's a show I really like, and there's this girl on the show, and she's like, when I was a child, I had a world record where I built like the whole building in cards. So they got her a deck of cards in the studio during the show, and they're like, okay, go ahead and do it. She couldn't get 4 cards, like anything that my child could do, okay? She couldn't get it together. You know why? There was a vent somewhere that they couldn't find. They kept blowing them. Finally, they figured it out and closed it. The smallest vent in the floor, the smallest vent in the middle of nowhere, made it impossible to put out a house of cards. You understand? Same thing. The smallest tribulation, the smallest trial, without holding Christ's hand, without faith, nothing can stand. Everyone will be shaken. Okay? Where are we going? Okay, we're almost done actually. So there was this time where I accompanied a friend. They used to go on this thing where they walk and they try to find someone homeless or whatever, and they take them and they feed them and they take them out for dinner, whatever it be. So I never go to these things. I've never been like since. And I was like, okay, I'll go with you, whatever. So I go with this girl and another guy, and we're walking, and it's like you take your pick, and the guy's name was Guy, and until today, like I still like remember him. Such a cute old man, kid, 60 years old. So we find him, and the person I'm with does all the talking, you know, and she's like, oh, bien Guy, and whatever. We walk into Tim Hortons. She gets him something to eat, she gets him something to drink, and I'm sitting down there, like French for me is like, I'm already very nervous. I'm like, Allo Guy, ça va bien, merci beaucoup, excellent. And the guy's like homeless, he's looking at me, he's like, Enta retarded, habibi. Anyway, so we're going inside, and then it was weird because no one ever asked these people, like, what's your story, like what happened, or like, you know, people either give them $2, ask them if they want to eat. Few people sit with them and be like, so what's going on, like, talk to me about yourself. So we're sitting down, and the girl I was with was like, tell me a bit about yourself. And the thing that like brought him to tears and then almost brought me to tears and the girl me to tears, it was a disaster, okay, is that he was 60, 65 years old. He was an older man, okay? Maybe he was, I don't know, yeah, maybe he could have been older, but like, you know, like without being shaven and having like white hair and not looking very clean, like sometimes you look like you're much older than you are, but I don't know what he was. Anyway, so he's sitting down, and when we ask him, like, tell us about yourself, how you got here, like, what's happening, like, he brings us back to when he was 20. The last thing that defined his life, he was 20. And what happened was he lost his mom. But he was 20, right? A lot of people used, like, he wasn't a child, he was an adult, but still, the thing that broke him the thing that defined his life, the thing that he traces back as the cause of why he's on the street today, is losing his mother. And he's sitting there in tears, as a 60-year-old man, in tears, saying, I really miss my mother. I want to go see my mother. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, but you're 60, that was 40 years ago, that's crazy. And to him, it was like yesterday, because he could never get past the fact that his mother was no longer there. And the last person that loved him was his mother. And it was so saddening. It broke our hearts. And we're sitting there, and this man is like an older man, but in front of us, and he's crying. He's like, my mother loved me. She was the last person. I missed my mother. He was not prepared. He was not prepared to handle this. And this is not a judgment of him or spirituality or whatever. This is just to give you an example. We know many people who have lost their mothers or fathers, or people that have been orphans or whatever. What's the defining factor? What's the difference? Because their parents didn't love them? No. It's because they trust in greater meaning. They trust in a resurrection. They trust in a new life. They trust that their family member is still there with them. They trust that God is there to take care of them. One of the Father Lazarus, is that the last anchorite in St. Anthony, Father Lazarus? So he had a similar occurrence, okay? But in his story, you should really see it. It's called The Last Anchorite. It's like on YouTube. It's like a CYC thing. He talks about his mother, Bardo, and also as an older man. And he says that the day he met Christ is he was bowing down before a picture of St. Mary, and he didn't know why, because he wasn't like that religious, and he's crying like, I want my mother, I miss my mother, I don't have a mother. And he heard St. Mary say, I will be your mother. Yeah. And that's what brought him to Christ. Do you understand the difference now? No one is an orphan. No one is without father. No one is without mother. No one is without all things when it's through Christ. And this is the point of all this, is not to say God will allow you to be tried by what you cannot handle. No. God will allow you to be tried by everything. By everything that is awful that this world will try you by. But He is standing there the whole time. He is standing there, experiencing it with you the whole time, strengthening you the whole time, making you grow the whole time. And that's what the whole thing is. So when we go around and we do bad on an exam and mama تيجي تطبطب علينا كده ما تخافش حبيبي ربنا مش هيجربك اكتر من انت تقدر. That's not what that means. Doesn't mean like don't worry, you must pass this exam because God will not try you. No. It means take it in faith. Get up, use your faith. Include Christ in your studies, include Him in your life goals, include Him in your purpose, and see what happens then. Right? Okay. So yes. Okay, this is the final thing. Gazma, okay? This is what trials are, okay? They increase our faith. Trials are a shoe. A gazma, okay? Nike, good shoe, okay? If you're training for a marathon, which we all are, a spiritual marathon. A marathon is 40 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. It's 40 kilometers. I think 44, 42? 42 kilometers. It's long. Yani enough to kill me 10% of it then, okay? So, any normal human who wants to train for a marathon, they're going to wake up in the morning, they're going to have a good breakfast, and then sit back down until yihdemu, and then they'll go put on their shoes, and they'll go the first day, half a kilometer, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, whatever. The next day, same thing. Next day, same thing. After a week, they go 3 kilometers. After a month, maybe 4. And I'm exaggerating. But the idea is, and people actually train for marathons for a full year, like a full year running every day. Once they get to a year, that 1 kilometer now turned into 42 kilometers. Okay? Now, imagine you don't have your shoe on. You're Gazmer, okay? You go outside. The first day is supposed to be 1 kilometer. واحد يمشي في الشارع كده بالذات الشوارع الجميلة بتاعتنا الوسخة المليانة بلاوي سوداء, okay? And you're running in the street without your shoe because it doesn't matter. And you're running without your shoe, and after 100 meters you step on an old bottle thing cap. You step on someone else's مش عارف rock. Your feet are blistered. You're bloody. You're like العملية دي مش هتمشي خالص. You turn around. You come home. You didn't even do 100 meters. The next day you wake up. Your feet are dead. You're like, today I'm going to try again. No shoes. You go outside. They still hurt from yesterday. You get even worse blisters. You come back before you even leave your garage. Okay? You come to the end. You come back. There's no way possible in the world you will ever train to be a marathon unless one thing, yani, which I didn't think about until now, get that nahasit وبقت gas, your foot is like a shoe. But assuming your foot does not become a shoe, okay, there is no way you can train for this marathon without your shoes. Impossible. You cannot do it. You will not go 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 40 kilometers. That's what trials and tribulations are. You cannot go on the spiritual train for a marathon without a trial and tribulation. It is what brings you there. It's a very dumb example. I was trying to think of something better, but okay? So every time you look at this disgusting foot, I don't know who it is, it's on Google Images, because the amount of things that pop up on Google Images when you put blistered feet is really horrific. Don't do it, you'll never sleep again. But every time you think of a blistered foot, think of yourself, this is why I need trials and tribulations in my life. They are the shoe that is going to train me to get to where I need to get. Okay? So will there be trials and tribulations? There will be trials and tribulations. Will they be difficult? They will be difficult. Will they be more than you can handle? They will most definitely be more than you can handle. But it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about who you bring along in the journey. Understand? It's about who you engage with you. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do about your choice to bring God with you or not. And only then will it actually be something useful that doesn't break you, but builds you up. And these are the last ones, I'll just leave them there. And glory be to God forever and ever. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a quick question. Just to recap the whole thing, like you are going to try it anyway, you know, can't skip it. However, the only solution is that we can get it out of it. Ask the help from the experts.
Yes.
What one to serve?
Yeah. They're very easy sermon. Not hard. Very easy. So yes, you recap the whole sermon in one sentence. I feel a little more useless now. Okay? Yeah. Bring God within your trial. It's a little bit more complicated than just bring God, because it's bringing God means you have to accept it also, and that's like a whole other part of it. We talked about it when we were talking about God's will, like way back when, but most people get stuck at accepting the trial. So it's not just about bringing God, but to bring God in, you must accept. And most of us, or I'll speak about myself, most of my time I spend is trying to avoid the trial, the tribulation, try to put my head, try to think of ways to get out of it, because I refuse to accept it. So that's probably the only thing that I'll add to that. But yes, you're much easier.
Sorry, do you have any cases of sector or not?
No, you do. Of course you have.
People say, one, you have no option, just live and ask God to give you the power to be able to go through, unless you will not be able to get over it or overcome whatever the solution is.
Sure.
So we will have another sermon how to accept it or release it.
Yes, you will give it. Come tell us how you can accept it. Anybody have any other questions? Yalla recap for us back.
Sorry.
Just joking.
I had no idea what to about.
She's like nodding and smiling. It's number one fan. It's really fantastic. It's kind of shy, I guess. All right. Anything else? Okay. Thank God.
Just a quick correction, or maybe change on Sunday. In the email we wrote on Sunday that after the topic, Danny, that we would probably have lunch together and then go to the botanical gardens. But someone noticed that it's also like the F1 weekend, which means that like downtown becomes like the worst and most crowded place on earth. So we would never want to like pass through downtown to get to the botanical gardens, which is after downtown. So we're going to think about it together if we want to do something else. Yani, like some suggestions, like Laval Nature Park, حاجة زي كده. فكروا كده قولوا لنا. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God. Thank you, dear Heavenly Father, for your love and grace and your mercy. Thank you, Lord, for everything to build our spiritual muscle and to give us an experience of faith. Please, Lord, strengthen our faith, and if we have a lack of faith, forgive us. And grant us to believe in you and to experience you, and believe and experience that you're always there, that everything that comes our way we can handle as long as we're with you, or as long as you're with us. We pray, Lord, that we would be just like the martyrs and their families, and how they're able to experience things that are above human nature, that are so much harder than any human being can bear. But that your grace would be there with us and with everyone that goes through a tribulation or a trial. Please, Lord, help us to focus our eyes on you always, and never be shaken, to be like Mount Zion always. Bless our generation, Lord, because we live in a very critical time, in a very difficult and challenging, tempestuous time, Lord. But I pray that you would give us grace according to the times, and that you would allow us to be victorious, allow us to be the light and salt of the earth, and allow us to be useful vessels in the world, everywhere we are, school and work, and in public, and in private, and in our families, and in our churches. We pray this through the intercessions of St. Mary, St. George, St. Joseph, Archangel Michael, all the saints who have pleased you since the beginning. Here, as we pray, thank you, our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those trespassing. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. In Christ Jesus our Lord.
Long time. For me.
اعملها صح كده صح شوي يلا بقى تعملها مع مريم شوية
I was